Welcome to today's story. This is Mango and Mocha, a heartwarming tale about Cynthia, a Ghanaian café owner in Beijing, her young son Andrews, and the calm, gentle Li Wei who changes their lives forever. If you love heartfelt romances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story from our channel. Now grab some popcorn and let's dive into today's story. The rain had been falling steadily since morning, tapping against the glass windows of Cynthia Owusu's cafe like an uninvited guest refusing to leave. She glanced outside for the 10th time that afternoon, watching the streets of her quiet Beijing neighborhood blur into muted shades of gray. The golden glow inside her shop was a sharp contrast, warm light spilling over polished wooden tables, the gentle hum of the coffee machine, and the sweet scent of freshly baked mango tarts wafting from the counter. Her son, Andrews, sat at the far table, swinging his legs as he colored in a book. Every so often, he would look up and grin at her, and she would smile back, reminded of how grateful she was for these quiet, simple days. 2 years had passed since her divorce, and she had worked hard to rebuild her life here. No drama, no chaos, just the rhythm of brewing coffee, slicing fruit, and watching the world go by from her little corner of Beijing. The bell above the door jingled, letting in a gust of cold air and the faint scent of rain. Cynthia turned toward the door, towel still in hand, and she saw him, a tall Chinese man in a dark gray coat, droplets clinging to his hair. He looked to be in his mid-30s, his posture straight but relaxed, his gaze calm as it swept over the cozy interior before landing on her. "Welcome," she said with a polite smile, shifting the towel to her other hand. "Cold day for a walk." He gave a small nod, his voice smooth and deep. "Yes, the rain caught me on my way back from work." He glanced up at the chalkboard menu above the counter, then pointed. "Can I have mango passion smoothie?" His accent was light but noticeable, the words carefully pronounced. Cynthia blinked in mild surprise. "A smoothie? In this weather?" she teased gently, already reaching for the fruit. He allowed the faintest hint of a smile. "Sometimes you want summer, even in winter." She chuckled, appreciating the unexpected answer. "Fair enough. One mango passion smoothie coming right up." As she worked, she noticed him choose a seat by the window, placing his umbrella carefully beside him. He sat with quiet stillness, yet there was something observant about him, like he was taking in the room, the rain, and even her movements behind the counter. Andrews, ever curious, had been watching. "Mum," he whispered loudly, leaning over the counter. "Do you think he's a detective? He's just sitting there, looking outside." "Hush, Andy," she said under her breath, fighting back a laugh. "Not everyone who's quiet is a detective." She brought the smoothie over, the bright golden orange drink glistening against the rainy backdrop outside. "Here you go," she said, setting it down gently. "Thank you." His gaze flicked to the drink, then back to her. "It smells fresh." "That's because it is. The mangoes came in this morning. You'll have to tell me what you think." He took a slow sip, his expression thoughtful, before nodding. "Perfect. Not too sweet." She smiled at the compliment, feeling an unexpected warmth at the simple praise. "Glad you like it." For the next 20 minutes, he remained there, occasionally sipping his drink while watching the rain trace lazy paths down the glass. Their eyes met a few times, brief, polite exchanges, but neither spoke much more. When he finally rose, he placed a few bills on the table and offered her a small bow. "Thank you for the drink," he said. "You're welcome," she replied. "Stay dry out there." The door jingled again as he stepped out into the rain, opening his umbrella. Cynthia found herself watching the dark shape disappear down the street. She shook her head lightly, amused at her own curiosity. Later that evening, after closing the shop and sending Andrews upstairs ahead of her, she stepped onto the small balcony of their apartment. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the street glistened under the dim yellow glow of the street lamps. As she leaned against the railing, adjusting the window shutters, movement caught her eye. There he was again, umbrella in hand, walking slowly down the street as though in no rush to get anywhere. The lamplight illuminated his face for a brief second, and she saw that same calm expression from earlier. Something inside her shifted, a faint, unsteady flutter she hadn't felt in years. She told herself it was nothing, just a passing stranger who liked mango smoothies. Still, she stayed there until he disappeared from sight, the sound of his footsteps fading into the rain. 2 days passed before Cynthia saw him again. The rain had stopped, replaced by crisp cold air and a pale afternoon sun that stretched thin shadows across the café's floor. Cynthia was behind the counter, carefully arranging slices of orange cake on a glass tray, when the bell above the door jingled. She glanced up, and there he was. The same calm expression, the same dark gray coat. This time, his hair was neatly brushed and the umbrella was gone. "Good afternoon," she greeted, her voice lighter than she intended. "Good afternoon," he replied with a small bow, stepping toward the counter. His eyes flicked briefly toward the chalkboard, then back to her. "Cappuccino today." "Hot. No summer this time?" she teased, already reaching for the coffee beans. He allowed himself a faint smile. "Not every day can be summer." She laughed under her breath and set the machine to work. The rich scent of coffee began to fill the air, mingling with the faint tang of citrus from the cakes. Andrews, hunched over his homework at a corner table, looked up and noticed him immediately. "That's the smoothie man," Andrews whispered loudly, eyes wide with recognition. Cynthia gave her son a warning look. "Andy, that's not polite," she murmured, though she was secretly amused. But instead of ignoring him, the man turned toward Andrews and said in a warm tone, "Yes. Mango passion smoothie. You remembered." Andrews grinned. "Do you drink coffee too?" "I do," he replied, leaning slightly on the counter. "But only when it's made well." Cynthia slid the cappuccino across to him with a raised brow. "Well, no pressure then." He accepted the cup, inhaled the steam, and took a sip. His shoulders relaxed, and he gave a quiet nod. "Perfect." He chose the same seat by the window, but instead of gazing outside like before, he pulled a leather-bound notebook from his coat pocket and opened it. A pencil danced lightly across the page, forming clean, precise lines, arches, rooftops, and sweeping curves. Andrews, unable to resist, wandered over. "What are you drawing?" The man looked up, his expression softening. "A building I'm working on. It will be a library when it's done." Cynthia called from the counter, "Andy, don't bother the customer." "It's fine," the man said quickly. "He's curious." He turned back to Andrews. "Do you want to see how the entrance will look?" Andrews nodded eagerly, pulling a chair beside him without hesitation. The man shifted his notebook so the boy could see better and began explaining his sketch. How the front doors would be framed by tall windows, how the sunlight would spill into the reading rooms. From behind the counter, Cynthia watched the interaction with mild surprise. Her son didn't usually warm up to strangers so quickly. And yet here he was leaning close, asking questions, even pointing at details in the drawings. When Cynthia brought over a plate of warm banana bread for Andrews, she set another small plate in front of the man. "On the house," she said simply. "It's my way of saying thank you for entertaining him." "Then I should thank you," he said, glancing at the slice before meeting her eyes. "For the coffee, and for letting him see my work." "What's your name?" Andrews asked suddenly, mouth full of banana bread. The man smiled. "Li Wei." Cynthia repeated it in her mind, Li Wei, letting the syllables settle like a new song she wasn't sure she knew yet. They talked for a little while longer, the conversation flowing easily between them, until the clock above the counter ticked toward closing. Li Wei gathered his notebook and stood. "Thank you for the coffee," he said again, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than before. "You're welcome," Cynthia replied, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Goodbye, Uncle Wei." Andrews called after him, the title slipping out naturally. Li Wei's lips curved into a smile as he left, and this time, Cynthia didn't just watch him go. She wondered when she would see him again. She didn't have to wonder long. 3 days later, he returned, carrying a small paper bag of fresh strawberries. "For your menu," he said simply. And just like that, his visits became a quiet rhythm in their days. A cappuccino here, a smoothie there, a few words exchanged, and sometimes a shared silence that was somehow more comforting than conversation. One evening, after the last customer left, Cynthia was wiping down a table when Li Wei set down his coffee and joined her and Andrews at their corner table. "Do you know how to play Chinese checkers?" he asked, holding up a small wooden board he'd brought along. Andrews shook his head. "No, but I can learn." Cynthia hesitated, looking between them. "I haven't played in years." "Then I'll teach both of you," Li Wei said with a calm certainty that left little room for argument. They played until the street outside was quiet and the café was filled only with their laughter. For the first time in a long while, Cynthia didn't notice the time passing. When he left that night, the sound of the door closing behind him seemed louder than usual. She stood there for a moment, hands resting on the counter, before quietly admitting to herself that she was looking forward to the next time. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm that Cynthia hadn't expected, one she found herself looking forward to more than she would admit. Li Wei came by often, sometimes staying only long enough for a quick coffee, sometimes sitting for hours with his sketches while Andrews chatted beside him. Their conversations grew a little longer, a little warmer, until it felt almost natural for him to be there. One cold Thursday afternoon, just as Cynthia was refilling the display case with pineapple tarts, the bell above the door jingled and Li Wei stepped inside. "Good afternoon," she greeted, smiling before she could stop herself. "Good afternoon," he replied, glancing at her, then toward the back where Andrews was arranging cups. "Are you both free this weekend?" Cynthia paused, wiping her hands on a cloth. "I think so." "Why?" "There's a lantern festival by the riverside on Saturday night," he said, leaning his elbows lightly on the counter. "It's beautiful. Lanterns, fireworks, music. I thought maybe you and Andrews would like to come." Before she could answer, Andrews' head popped up from behind the counter. "Lanterns? Fireworks? Mama, can we go? Please." Cynthia laughed softly, shaking her head. "I suppose we're going then." She looked back at Li Wei. "All right, we'll be there." Saturday night arrived with the crisp bite of winter in the air. The streets near the river were alive with color, red and gold lanterns hanging overhead, swaying gently in the wind, their warm glow reflecting off the dark water. The air smelled of grilled skewers, roasted chestnuts, and sugar-glazed hawthorn fruits. Somewhere nearby, a group of children was singing, their voices blending with the hum of the crowd. Li Wei was waiting for them near the entrance to the festival. He smiled when he saw them approaching, Andrews bundled in his thick coat, Cynthia in her long camel-colored one. "You made it," he said, his eyes lingering on Cynthia a second longer than necessary. "Of course," she replied. "Andrews wouldn't let me forget." "I like lanterns," Andrews said matter-of-factly, already scanning the stalls ahead. Li Wei led them through the rows of vendors until they reached a small table selling paper lanterns in every shade, soft pink, golden yellow, deep crimson. He picked up 3. "Tradition says you write your wish on it before you send it into the sky," he explained, handing each of them a thin brush and a strip of rice paper. Andrews immediately bent over his lantern, his tongue poking out in concentration. "I'm wishing for a puppy," he declared. Cynthia laughed. "You'd better wish for Mama to agree first." Li Wei's lips curved into a quiet smile before he began writing on his own lantern. Cynthia glanced at him, curious but didn't ask. She took her time, the brush hovering over the paper before she finally wrote, "To love again without fear." They walked to the riverbank together, the glow of hundreds of lanterns already drifting into the sky like floating stars. One by one, they lit theirs, holding them until the warm air filled them enough to rise. Andrews released his first, clapping as it joined the others in the night sky. Cynthia's turn came next. She lit hers carefully, the paper trembling in her hands. As it began to lift, Li Wei's hand brushed against hers, steadying the lantern. She looked up, and for a moment the noise of the crowd faded, replaced by the quiet weight of his gaze. "May your wish come true," he said softly. Her breath caught. "And yours." They stood there for a long moment, watching their wishes drift away, until the first firework burst above the river in a cascade of gold. Andrews cheered, tugging on both their hands, and they followed him into the crowd. That night, Cynthia lay in bed replaying the warmth of his hand against hers. She told herself it was nothing, just a friendly gesture. But the flutter in her chest said otherwise. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. From the moment Li Wei had helped them release their lanterns into the night sky, life in the café seemed subtly brighter. He began showing up more often, not just for coffee or sketches, but on his days off, offering to help with small tasks that Cynthia hadn't realized she needed. One morning, she found him crouched by the dessert shelf, tightening screws with careful precision while Andrews watched from a nearby stool. "Be careful, Uncle Wei," Andrews said, handing him a screwdriver. "Don't drop it on your foot." "I'm a professional," Li Wei replied, glancing at the boy with a faint smile. "But thanks for looking out for me." Cynthia leaned on the counter, smiling at the sight. "I don't know what we would do without you," she said softly. "Though I think the café is starting to look better than my old apartment." Li Wei chuckled. "That's the idea. A comfortable space makes everyone happy, especially you and Andrews." Days turned into weeks, and Li Wei's presence became as much a part of the café as the smell of roasted coffee and fresh fruit. He repainted the outdoor sign, installed brighter lights that gave the shop a warmer glow, and even reorganized the counter so everything was within reach. Andrews took every opportunity to shadow him, calling him Uncle Wei, so naturally it made Cynthia's chest tighten with unexpected warmth. One quiet afternoon, as Cynthia was preparing a tray of mango tarts, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowning as the caller ID flashed the name she hadn't seen in years, her ex-husband. Hesitation gripped her chest before she finally answered. "Cynthia," he said in his familiar voice, smooth but distant. "I was thinking it's time I visited Andrews. I want to see him." She swallowed hard, her hands gripping the phone tightly. I'll have to think about it," she said cautiously. The line went silent for a moment before he continued. "He's my son. I hope you'll let me see him soon." When she hung up, her hands trembled slightly. She wasn't sure whether it was anger, fear, or the fragile mixture of both. Li Wei, who had been cleaning the counter nearby, noticed her pale expression. "Cynthia," he asked gently, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" It's nothing," she said quickly, trying to steady her voice, but he could tell it was more than nothing. "Your ex-husband?" he asked softly, his dark eyes attentive. She nodded, looking away. "He wants to visit Andrews. I'm worried it might disrupt the life I've worked so hard to build here." Li Wei placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've built something strong," he said quietly. "No one can take that from you. Not him, not anyone. You're doing everything right, and Andrews is happy. That's what matters." For the first time, she felt some of the tension ease, the tight knot in her chest loosening slightly. She looked at him, gratitude shimmering in her eyes. "Thank you," she murmured. That evening, after the last customer left and the café was quiet, they sat at one of the corner tables with steaming mugs of ginger tea. The soft light from the window reflected on Li Wei's calm expression, and he stirred his tea slowly, savoring the warmth. "Cynthia," he began hesitantly, looking at her in a way that made her stomach flutter. I want to tell you something. These past weeks, I've started looking forward to coming here, to seeing you, to seeing Andrews. Your smile, it's the first thing I want to see every day." She looked down at her cup, her fingers tracing the rim nervously. She didn't know what to say. Her heart was racing, her mind caught between caution and something far more daring. Li Wei reached out, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. "I just needed you to know." Cynthia's breath hitched. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel the warmth of his words deep in her chest. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. And yet, her heart answered for her in the quiet, steady rhythm that matched his calm presence. The night stretched on around them, the soft glow of the café lights, and the distant hum of the city wrapping them in a cocoon of quiet intimacy. And for the first time in a long time, Cynthia felt she could let herself hope. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of Cynthia's café, casting a golden glow over the polished counters and fruit displays. Andrews was at his usual corner table, sketching rooftops and lanterns, his small fingers smudged with pencil lead. Cynthia moved behind the counter, arranging a tray of fresh mango pastries, when the bell above the door jingled. Her heart skipped. She wasn't sure why, until she realized it wasn't Li Wei entering, but someone else, her ex-husband. "Cynthia," he said, his voice calm measured. "I hope it's a good time. I want to see Andrews." Cynthia took a deep breath, forcing a polite smile. "It's fine. He's here." Andrews looked up, wide-eyed. "Dad." Her ex smiled at his son, a soft, almost tentative expression. "Hey, buddy. I've missed you." Andrews rushed toward his father and hugged him. After a while, Cynthia motioned for him to sit. Li Wei appeared shortly after, quietly coming in to join them, placing a reassuring hand on the back of Cynthia's chair. He didn't speak, just offered a calm, steady presence. As the afternoon passed, the conversation was surprisingly warm and cordial. Andrews showed his drawings, and Li Wei occasionally added a comment about composition or light, which brought a small smile to her ex's face. At one point, her ex noticed the way Li Wei gently handed Andrews a cup of juice. He nodded subtly, almost in acknowledgement. Then, leaning slightly toward Cynthia, he said softly, "Li Wei, he's a good man. You've done well to have him in your life." Cynthia looked at him, a quiet smile breaking across her face. "Yes," she whispered. When it was time to leave, her ex stood at the door. "Thank you for letting me visit," he said. "And he seems happy. That's what matters." Cynthia exhaled, a weight lifting off her shoulders. "Yes, he is happy." After he left, the cafe felt quieter, warmer in a different way. Andrews bounced on the floor, smiling at Cynthia. "That wasn't so bad, Mummy. Dad's okay. And Uncle Wei, he's awesome. Cynthia glanced at Li Wei, who was cleaning a counter, his expression unreadable but patient. She realized something deep within her had shifted. She could let the past go. She looked at him, a small, genuine smile breaking across her face. That evening, after closing, Li Wei returned with a small, neatly wrapped box. He set it gently on the counter, smiling softly. For you, he said. Just a little something. Cynthia raised an eyebrow, curious. What is it? He opened the box to reveal chocolate-covered dried mangoes. You're the mango, he said, his voice calm and earnest. Bright and full of life. And I guess, I'm the mocha, steady and warm. Together, we're something sweet. Cynthia laughed, tears welling in her eyes. That's really sweet. Literally and figuratively. He shrugged, a faint grin tugging at his lips. I thought you'd like it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The café was silent except for the distant hum of the city outside. Then, slowly, Cynthia reached out, taking his hand in hers. Li Wei, I think I've fallen for you. His smile softened, and he held her hand a little tighter. And I've been waiting for you to say that. On the stairs leading to the apartment house, Andrews peeked at them, his grin wide. He didn't need words to know that the two of them belonged together. They stood together in the doorway of the café, the aroma of coffee, mango, and chocolate filling the air. Li Wei leaned slightly closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. So, mango and mocha? Together, Cynthia said, laughing softly through her tears. As they stood there, hands intertwined, the soft glow of the shop's lights wrapped around them like a promise. For the first time in years, everything felt complete, home, heart, and family, all finally in place.